We're waiting for that ruling from the appeals courts on the state's gun and magazine ban. We're also waiting on the Illinois Supreme Court's ruling on that same law, as other laws that the governor has signed, one in particular being halted, and that deals with abortion and clinics that don't offer abortion. We'll touch on that, but as we all wait for the outcome of these cases, more lawsuits are expected against the gun and magazine ban on the Fifth Amendment issue, on the parts issue, and more. We'll keep you updated this week. We're getting an indication that there could be more lawsuits filed against Illinois' gun and magazine ban. But while we're waiting for that, the governor also signing a whole bunch of other legislation, but there are going to be legal challenges. However, we're still waiting on one particular gun legislation that the governor has yet to sign, and that is House Bill 218, and that would allow for the state to go after gun manufacturers for their advertising. So that very much is a law that still is pending the governor's signature, so we'll watch him when that happens. We'll keep close tabs on it. But as we continue to wait for the outcome of the litigation against the gun and magazine ban, some people are speculating that even looking at the Bruin decision from last year from the U.S. Supreme Court, that a lot of the gun rights advocates are pointing to, saying, hey, the Supreme Court says text, history, and tradition of the Second Amendment, that's the only way to judge gun laws. And they're using that in their arguments to go after gun laws. But some are indicating that there could be a, quote, poison pill in that Bruin decision. And in particular, this idea of unprecedented societal concern and dramatic technological changes. Some characterizing that in the Bruin decision as a big enough hole to drive a truck through, and how some courts might actually use that to uphold gun regulation. And as we've already seen in at least one case, a federal judge upholding Connecticut's ban on semi-automatic weapons and magazines over certain capacities. But getting down to the nitty-gritty detail, the idea of major societal concerns, some gun rights advocates will say, listen, there have been mass violence episodes all throughout history. And it's not necessarily a new societal concern. We'll see how that plays out in court briefings that are ultimately filed by the judges in these various cases. But then you get to technological evolution, and is that something that should be able to circumvent rights? And people point to, for instance, the Gutenberg printing press and the idea of a free press. That doesn't change if the machine that is doing the press is a device like a phone, a cell phone, a modern smartphone, and using Twitter. Are you able to suppress people's speech in that capacity? A lot of civil libertarians will say, no, you can't. You can't, it doesn't matter about the technological advancements, you cannot violate somebody's free speech rights. Same thing goes for technological advancements with GPS technology. The ability to track somebody's every movement, either in a vehicle or even by looking at their phone. And even though, the founding fathers didn't even have electricity, they foresaw, how bad it is to allow for government to track and surveil and search and seize without due process rights. So even with the technological advancements, that doesn't mean the Fourth Amendment just gets thrown out the window. So those are some of the, counter arguments to what could be the judges looking at, quote, societal concerns and technological changes. So obviously some interesting debates are going to be had on laws that deal with banning certain types of firearms. So you have, again, some of the outcomes that we've seen across the country dealing with litigation against gun and magazine bans, and in Connecticut in particular, a judge there did indeed hold up the state's gun and magazine ban, and talking in a variety of ways about what kind of firearms are allowed for self-defense. And seeming to really just narrow in on handguns. But, of course, there are a lot of other firearms that people use for lawful purposes, be it, sport, be it for hunting or other things. And the argument is that they're just as useful for self-defense. But all of this, even in Illinois, as we await for that gun and magazine ban outcome in the courts, it's expected to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court when we ultimately are going to have an outcome on how these things should be determined. But of course, you've got the gun and magazine ban here in Illinois that still very much is up in the air and still waiting to see what's going to happen. Could we get a ruling this week? I don't know. You can't really predict how the courts are going to act at all of this. You would think it would be wonderful to get a ruling so that whichever side is the defeated side in this preliminary injunction request, they would then go to the U.S. Supreme Court and possibly get in front of them for a conference this fall. Who knows? But you got the January 1st deadline for people to register their firearms with Illinois State Police or face criminal penalties. And that's a big concern a lot of people have. And will there be a separate lawsuit filed to block the law, including looking at the Fifth Amendment argument, making sure that you have the right to not incriminate yourself? And in this instance, it would be you telling Illinois State Police that you are in possession of a firearm that legislators defined as an assault weapon and therefore banned. So you'd have to tell police that you own a banned firearm, and thereby people saying that that is self-incrimination and you should not be forced to do that under criminal penalties or the threat of criminal penalties. So obviously that question still very much is up in the air. But another law that the governor is expected to sign but has yet to sign deals with gun manufacturers, and that is House Bill 218. And just to look at the text here, you've got the measure itself. It's under civil law tech, and it just read the synopsis here as it was amended. Replaces everything after the enacting clause, amends the Consumer Fraud and Deceptive Practices Act, provides that it is unlawful and within the meaning of the act for any firearm industry member through the sale, manufacturing, importing, or marketing of a firearm-related product, or knowingly create, maintain, contribute to a condition in Illinois that endangers the safety or health of the public by conduct either unlawful in itself or unreasonable under the circumstances, including failing to establish or utilize reasonable controls. Advertise, market, or promote a firearm-related product in a manner that reasonably appears to support, recommend, or encourage individuals to engage in unlawful paramilitary or private military activity. Interesting. Advertise, market, promote, design, or sell any firearm-related product in a manner that reasonably appears to support, recommend, or encourage persons under the age of 18 to unlawfully purchase or unlawfully possess or use a firearm-related product. And it goes on from there, right? So this is a bill that the governor has yet to sign. It's one of about 60 that remain on his desk after he continues to sign dozens and dozens and dozens of bills. So on Friday, Governor J.B. Pritzker did act on 95 different bills, even more than that, because he held a bill signing ceremony, several of them, on Friday. And in particular, this one was interesting. It's a bill signing ceremony that dealt with Native American culture, and they actually had a ceremonial song that they played for the governor. It was pretty fun to hear, actually. They gave the governor a ceremonial blanket before he sat down and signed these measures. This was in Schaumburg on Friday, where the governor enacted laws to allow the state to create cemeteries protected from public use on state lands. Also, another measure allows the expansion of public school curriculum to include Native American history and requires schools to allow student celebrations during graduation ceremonies. Well, that's just one or several of the laws the governor enacted on Friday. A whole bunch of others. Again, he announced through his office more than 90 bills that he acted on. One he vetoed, and that measure dealt with employers and the E-Verify program. So he essentially said that this particular measure that he signed a veto for. He did so at the request of the sponsors. He said, however, due to irreconcilable drafting errors, the bill will have an adverse effect on workers it seeks to protect. He says his administration appreciates the hard work of the sponsors and looks forward to working with them to get a better bill. So that bill is vetoed, and that was Senate Bill 1515. Other measures that the governor enacted, House Bill 1120 requires all charter schools in Illinois to include a union neutrality clause. Beginning next July, House Bill 1122 creates the Freelance Worker Protection Act, aiming to, quote, protect freelance workers from intimidation, harassment, and discrimination from firing parties, requiring timely compensation, and requires employers to provide freelance workers with written contracts. Beginning January 1st, another measure the governor signed, House Bill 2954 provides a private right of action for individuals who've been doxxed or had their personal information maliciously shared online. Also beginning next year, House Bill 3677 creates a new 3-year license for fishing, hunting, sportsmen, and trapping. You have other measures put into place. State agencies will have to track single-use plastic purchases within state government beginning July of 2024 and then establish goals to reduce that. Effective immediately, Senate Bill 1488 puts a 2-year hold on new teachers taking a teacher's performance assessment. The measure also convenes a work group to evaluate potential teacher performance assessments. Senate Bill 1872 removes the 4th year of a teacher's probationary period to allow them to reach tenure status quicker. Community colleges and public universities must make emergency contraception available through at least one campus wellness kiosk, and that's through Senate Bill 1907. That's effective immediately. Some of the other bills, of course, Senate Bill 2034, beginning January 1st, that creates the Child Extended Bereavement Leave Act and allows employers of businesses of 250 or more to take a maximum of 12 weeks of unpaid leave if the employee experiences the loss of a child by suicide or homicide. 6 weeks of unpaid leave will be available for employees who work for businesses between 50 and 250 employees. So the governor's office signing all of this different legislation. About 60 remain on his desk. One is Senate Bill 218, House Bill 218, and that is the measure that we just reviewed of the governor, possibly signing that would allow for the state to go after gun manufacturers if they conduct deceptive practices of sorts, or if they go and advertise things that encourages individuals to engage in unlawful paramilitary or private military activity, or looks to advertise or encourage persons under the age of 18 to partake in their Second Amendment right. So will the governor sign this? Fully anticipated he will. Will there be a lawsuit? That's expected as well. So while the governor continues to sign a whole bunch of laws, some are facing some pretty steep hurdles, especially when it comes to measures that allow for the state to go after certain organizations or companies, like House Bill 218, allowing it to go after gun manufacturers. But what about another bill that the governor signed last month that allows the state to go after crisis pregnancy centers? And we'll talk about that next year with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.